senior instructors for the Center for Pain and Stress Research and a researcher as well. And tonight we're going to be going over a tutorial on the Dolphin Neurostim. So if you have one handy, I would grab it and the accessories with it. And if you will look at your screen and hit the mute button so that there are no background noises while we're doing our tutorial, no dogs barking and things like that. So we're going to do about an hour of instruction tonight. And then we're going to have about 30 minutes of time at the end for questions. You can either ask those questions by typing them in the chat box, and I'll get to them then, or you can ask them in person, whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to get started here. So if you have a Dolphin Neurostim, grab it, and we will start going over this from beginning to end. So starting at the tip of the Dolphin Neurostim, you'll notice there is a tip there that is made of a biocompatible alloy. If you push on it, you'll notice that it's spring-loaded. And because it is spring-loaded, when you clean these, we would actually recommend that you use a just like an alcohol wipe. You don't want to get liquid down in here because it interferes with a conductive medium that connects the spring to this tip. So don't dump anything in it. Just clean the tip carefully with an alcohol wipe. Moving up from the tip, there's a black button right here. You'll notice that when I press it, absolutely nothing happens because the unit is off. However, when we turn the unit on, this is what we're going to use to activate the treatment. And as long as we're holding this button down, we're actually doing a treatment. So moving up from there is an on and off switch. This switch also serves as the intensity control for the unit. So the more you roll this switch up, the more intense the treatment is. So if you get in the middle of a treatment and you find that it's too much, you can actually turn it down on the fly. So we're going to turn it on now. When I turn it on, you should be able to hear a constant tone here. Now, when I flip it over, you actually should see a green light right here, but you don't. So I have another example right here. When I turn this one on, you see the green light. So you actually want to see a green light when you turn it on, always. And if you turn it on and you don't see a green light, that means you have a battery that's about to die. So that's your indicator that you need to change the battery. So there are just a couple of times when you want to look at this light. And one of the most important times is when you first turn the unit on. You always want to check and make sure you have a green light there at the beginning of your treatment because you need enough voltage and amperage to complete your treatment. So at this point, I'm going to show you guys how to change the battery on here. You will need either a screwdriver or a coin or even a pocket knife. And you'll notice on the back of the Dolphin Neurostim, there are two screws, one at either end of the unit. And my best advice to you is don't ever take these screws out. A lot of people try to take these screws out when they're changing the batteries. And what happens is the whole unit comes apart, pieces fly everywhere. You void your warranty. You have to send it back to us to put it back together. So don't do that. You'll notice there is, however, a battery compartment right here. And if you take a screwdriver or a coin or whatever, you can pry this open pretty easily. And inside you will find a 9-volt battery. So you just want to lever that battery out. There are 3 kinds of batteries that we recommend for the Dolphin Neurostim. We recommend Duracell batteries. We recommend Panasonic batteries, which is what they come stock with. And we recommend Energizer batteries. So these are your 3 choices for the Dolphin Neurostim, and I'll tell you why. When you use AA batteries, D batteries, C batteries, AAA batteries, all those batteries are exactly the same size from one brand to another. But in the world of 9-volt batteries, they are actually different sizes. So if you start using brands other than these, you may get a battery that's too short and you may get a battery that's too long. So if you get a battery that's too short, you're going to put it in here and it's going to waggle around a lot. And you're going to get intermittent contacts, and you're going to have a hard time completing a treatment because your unit's going to go on and off. So the other thing is if you get a battery that's too long, there's a little plastic pole right here. And if you push on that really hard with the battery, you can actually snap that, and it's going to affect the integrity of the device. So when we initially designed this equipment, we didn't want to have a little wire sticking out because those always break on people. So we designed a battery compartment to fit a 9-volt battery. And it was then that we discovered that not all 9-volt batteries are the same size. So anyway, these are the 3 batteries we recommend. Definitely do not use cheap dollar store batteries. They have a really bad habit of dumping all their voltage at once, and that can actually fry the circuit board in the unit. So don't do that either. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the batteries that we recommend, and you're going to slide it in the Dolphin Neurostim, and then you're going to put this cap back on. And when you go to put this battery compartment cap back on, it's going to be a really hard snap. And so it's going to feel like it's going to break, but I promise you it's not going to break. It's just what it happens to sound like. So anyway, it gives you a really tight fit in there. And when you turn the unit on, you check, and now I have a nice green light there, which tells me I'm good to go on my next treatment. So with that being said, let's go on with the rest of the stuff about this unit. So this little roller switch right here, the more you roll this up, the more intense it is. Now that the unit is on, I can push this button down and you'll hear it beeping. And if I turn it over, you'll actually see that the light is flashing, but I wouldn't try and watch the light all the time when you're doing treatments. But as soon as I release this button, it goes back to a steady tone. So the unit's only going to do treatments as long as you're holding this button down. So as long as you're holding this down, you're doing a treatment. As soon as you take your finger off the button, the treatment is done, and you have to press the button down again if you want to re-engage the treatment. So moving up from there is a little small black button. And if I push this button, you'll notice there's now no noise. But if I flip the unit over, you'll see that the light is flashing. So there is a silent feature on this device. And this button puts the unit in a silent treatment mode. And it's also timed. So this runs for anywhere from about 11 to about 13 minutes. The device measures the number of electrons that go to the tip of the unit and then cuts off after a certain number. So if you have a battery that's a little bit newer, the treatment's going to go a little bit faster. And if you have a battery that's a little bit older, it may run for 13 minutes instead of 11 minutes. But that's just a feature. Once the treatment is over, or once that segment of the treatment is over, the device is going to go back to a steady tone like this. So again, when I push this little button, it goes into a silent mode, and the device will stay doing this for anywhere from 11 to about 13 minutes. And then it'll revert back to what we call the search mode. So this is a feature you can use if you're working in a clinic and you need to hook a patient up to, say, vagus nerve stimulation and walk away and do something else. Or if you're doing vagus nerve stimulation on yourself at home, this is a feature you can use. We put a timer on it. We had some devices before that didn't have a timed segment on it. And what would happen is people would put the vagus nerve stimulation on, and then they would end up falling asleep at night with that on and do like 5 or 6 hours of vagus nerve stimulation and wake up really groggy the next day. So that's just a feature to just to make sure you guys don't overtreat yourself. And so you have an idea of about how long your treatment has gone on. All right. So that's everything on this side of the unit. If we flip the unit over, you'll see that there's a little stainless steel plate right here, and it is perfectly shaped for your thumb. So when you hold these devices, we do recommend that you put your thumb right here. You have to have contact with this. So when you're doing treatments, you must either have your thumb on this plate, or you need to have, let me grab one for you guys. You need to have an electrode like this, and these are cut to fit there, connected to a specific wire. And I'll go over that in just a little bit. But for general treatments, so I'm a therapist. I use this device every day when I'm treating people. I've been using this technology for, probably about 25 years now. So when I'm doing treatments in my office and I'm working down somebody's back, I'll have generally 2 Dolphin Neurostims, and I will work down the patient's back, and I'll find my acupuncture points or motor points or trigger points, and then I'll push these buttons and I'll do my treatment. So I've got my thumbs on these metal plates. Now, the other thing that needs to happen when you're touching this metal plate is you have to have skin-to-skin contact with whoever you're treating. So if I'm treating myself and I have my thumb on here, all I have to do is this, and it's fine. But if I were treating somebody else, I would need to put my hand on them somewhere. It doesn't matter where. It could be on their forehead. It could be on their wrist. They could grab your arm, just as long as there's skin-to-skin contact, because the electrons have to circulate back up into the unit. Now, it's not enough just to touch their shirt. You really need to touch skin to skin. And there are some ways to work around that if you have somebody who is really prone to getting infections or something like that. There's ways we can wire this up that I'll show you in a little bit, that you can avoid the skin-to-skin contact with your patient. All right. Now, on the back of the unit above there, you're going to see that there are 2 slider switches here, one that says wet, normal, and dry. So this allows you to choose how sensitive the point finder is in this device. So this device will actually find acupuncture points, myofascial trigger points, and motor points. It does that by measuring how conductive your skin is to electricity. So you're actually going to run this over your skin, and when you find a treatment point, the light's going to go out and you're going to get a really high pitch. But the problem you run into is not everybody has the same skin. So, for example, I live in the States down in Georgia, and it's generally pretty humid down here. So, a lot of my patients come in kind of sweaty, and sweat is salt water. So, that makes their skin very conductive. So, if I get somebody like that, I'm going to want to put the setting on here either on normal or on wet, because that's going to make the device a little less sensitive. So, it'll actually find the treatment points for me. However, if I were living somewhere like Canada and it was February, or I were working in like a nursing home on patients who don't drink enough water and the air conditioner's running all the time and everybody's dehydrated, I would want to put this on the dry setting because that makes the point finder a little more sensitive and it's easier to find points. But if the person's skin is really conductive overall and you put this on the most sensitive setting, then you're going to have a hard time finding acupuncture points because everything's going to look like an acupuncture point. Moving up from there, there's another slider switch on here, and you'll see that this has a minus symbol, a plus symbol, and a plus minus symbol. So the minus symbol is a negative polarity, and that comes into play when you're trying to figure out what to do when you're doing a treatment. So part of this technology is actually based on acupuncture principles. And in the world of acupuncture, you're either trying to bring things up or bring things down. So if you have something that's deficient, you want to bring it up. So that's tonification, that's tonifying. So you'd want to put this on the positive setting for those situations. However, if you had a condition that's excessive and you want to bring it down, you use the negative setting. And the negative setting is going to be the setting that you guys use the most because most of what you're treating are conditions of excess, muscles that are too tight, nerve entrapments, migraine headaches, shingles, postherpetic neuralgia, strokes, angina attacks, concussions, muscle tear. Almost all those things are conditions of excess that you want to bring down. So it's actually pretty rare that you're going to use the positive setting on here. Conditions where you'd use a positive setting are things that, for example, if you had somebody, if you were doing, let's say, like cosmetic type stuff, you were doing an acupuncture facelift and somebody's face was drooping a little bit, or maybe they had Bell's palsy. That's a good example. So you have somebody with Bell's palsy. Well, their face is drooping, so you want to bring that up. So you would use the positive setting on the device for that. Or if somebody had... somebody was adrenally deficient, you might tonify their adrenal points to bring their adrenals up a bit so that they're a little more reactive to things. So those are some examples of when you might use the positive setting. And the last setting on here is a biphasic setting. So this is direct current and it generally runs in one direction. However, if you put this over on the biphasic setting over here, the current's going to cycle back and forth. It's actually going to alternate. It's not alternating current, but the current itself will alternate a bit. And that's going to come into play when you're dealing with areas of tissue damage that you're trying to heal, or when we get into doing scar treatments. It's incredibly useful for doing scar treatments. So we're going to get into that in just a minute here. Okay, so that's all the features on the device. And if you missed anything or you tuned in a little bit late, you guys are going to get a link tomorrow. You'll get an email from us tomorrow, and you can actually go back and watch this video as many times as you want. So you can go back over and over again and watch this. The other thing you're going to get is a link to join our Facebook forum, and I do recommend that you join that. It's a great place to ask questions. Other therapists get on there and ask questions. There are discussion threads about different treatments. It's just a great place to kind of touch base with everybody else who's doing this. It also helps you find people who may be doing treatments in your area, because we try and keep a running list of who's doing this therapy, but we don't know everybody who's doing this all the time because people move around a lot. So if you log into that, make yourself however you have to log into Facebook, then you can ask questions, and we'll also send you updates on when workshops may be coming up. We do online workshops. We do some tutorials like this. We do some online workshops that are several hours. We do some online live workshops that run for 3 or 4 hours, and we do some in-person workshops as well. So the in-person workshops are always a lot of fun. Those are usually a 2-day workshop. So if you're a therapist, I would recommend you sign up for one of those when you see one in your area. All right, so that's all the general features of the Dolphin Neurostim. So now we need to talk about how to actually use this thing to find treatment points. So the cool thing about this, like I said before, is this will find Chinese acupuncture points, it'll find motor points, and it will find myofascial trigger points. It does that by using an ohm meter inside it. So it measures how conductive your skin is to electricity. All myofascial trigger points, all motor points, and all acupuncture points are electrically more conductive than the surrounding skin. So you could go out to the hardware store and buy an electrician's ohm meter. You could run it around your body, and you could actually watch the dial, and you could locate all the acupuncture points. However, we've done the work for you. We've put it in here, but instead of watching a dial, you're going to listen to a tone. So let's look at a couple points first. And I'm going to look in this vagus nerve recovery book and just pick out a couple points you guys might find later. Let's see. I'm on page 12. If you want to follow along with me. It's not all that particularly important. I'm just going to show you how to find acupuncture points. But we're going to look for this point right here on the hand. This is large intestine 4. Again, this is page 12. And we're going to look for this point right up here on the elbow. This is large intestine 11. It says LI 11. Now, if you look next to each of these points, you're going to see, let's see if I can point it out for you. You're going to see either it's not really one in focus. There we go. You're going to see a negative symbol or a positive symbol. Now, each of these has a negative symbol next to it. So you can see the negative symbol there. You can see the negative symbols up here. So that tells you that for that particular treatment, you're going to want to use the negative setting on the device. So any of our books you have that have protocols in them, and so I'll pick another one here. Here's one, Functional Acupuncture for Health and Wellness. Let's see here. Here's a protocol for diarrhea. And you can see that each of the points has a negative or positive symbol next to it. Again, that corresponds to the polarity on your device. So if you ever aren't sure, you can just look at the protocols and it will tell you what polarity you need. If you're trying to figure out a protocol on your own, if you know a little bit about acupuncture, I would say that 98% of the time, if you leave these devices on the negative setting, it's going to do what you need. By and large, most of the things you're going to be treating are things that you want to bring down, and not necessarily things you want to bring up. All right, so how do we go about finding a point here? Well, let's locate this point first on my hand, and we're going to use the old-fashioned way. So people will tell you, like, if you ever have a headache, you can rub right here between your index finger and your thumb. You can rub right in here, and there's a point that's good for headaches. Okay, so that acupuncture point is called large intestine 4. It's the point we just looked at here in our book. So to find this point classically, it's not in the skin part here. It's up in the muscle right here. So it's in the meat right there. So if I pinch right here like this, my thumb on the bottom, or I can put my thumb on the top and pinch, it's very tender right in there. So this is where the acupuncture point is. So we're going to mark that. And then we're going to take this Dolphin Neurostim, and there are a lot of ways that people try to hold these. I can tell you after years and years of doing this, by far the best way to hold this device is to put your thumb on the metal plate. So people try to hold it with their fingers on the metal plate, but it really kind of messes things up. If you put your thumb on the metal plate here, it just settles back into your hand, and the crook of your index finger and your thumb supports it kind of like a pencil. So you really have fine motor control. So it's much, much easier to find treatment points. So this is how I do recommend holding it. So I'm going to turn my device on, and I've got a nice green light there. So that tells me my battery is good. And then if I were treating someone else, I would want to put my hand down on the patient or have skin-to-skin contact with them somewhere. but because it's me, I don't need to do that. So I'm going to use this and pull this across the skin. I'm going to put this on the normal setting. Since it's a little humid down here tonight, for once it's cool. It's going to be in the 50s tonight instead of the 70s. But so I'm going to pull this across the skin, and you can hear kind of a chattering noise as I pull this across the skin. If I turn it around, and you guys watch the light on here, when I get over the treatment point, the light goes out. You guys see that? So here's off the point, and there's on the point. And I can go back to that same point over and over again, and it'll always set the light off. So it's a very accurate point finder. It does take a little bit of practice to use this device, though. So the hints I will give you in using this to find acupuncture points are, you need to move slowly, because this takes like a microsecond to measure all the skin activity. So move very slowly and use not hard pressure, but don't go super light either. Just very moderately light pressure, and move in circles. So just move in circles, gradually getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's usually the best way to look for these points. So I'm going to find another point here, and I'm going to move the screen around just a little bit, the camera around just a little bit, so you can see. So there's another acupuncture point right here at the elbow, crease of the elbow, large intestine 11. It's a great homeostatic acupuncture point. I used to use it for fevers in my kids and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's found if you flex your arm up like this and go to the end of this crease at your elbow, this is where your acupuncture point is right here, like right there. So again, I'm going to take the Dolphin Neurostim. I'm going to make sure it's on the normal setting because of the humidity here. I'm going to turn it on. Make sure I got a nice green light there. I'm going to put my thumb on the metal plate. I'm going to put it on the negative setting. Let's say I have a fever, so I'm going to put it on the negative setting, and I want to bring my fever down. Then I'm going to pull this, and I'm going to hold this the wrong way so you can watch the light on here. I'm going to pull this across my skin. Let's see if I can get it angled here so you guys can see the light. Here we go. And there we go. The light goes out right there. So I can come off the point, and every time I go back onto the point, the light goes out. Now, if I put this on a setting that's too sensitive and my skin is damp, what's going to happen is you'll see that the light will stay out over a fairly large area. You guys see the light's out there? So the device is actually too sensitive. But if I move it all the way over to the wet setting and make it less sensitive, I can't get the light to go out even when I'm over the point. So it is important that you pick the right sensitivity on there, and that's something that's going to come with a little bit of practice. My general experience in teaching people, and I've been teaching this for 20 years. My general experience with teaching therapists is that your learning curve is something along the lines, if you practice this diligently for 2 or 3 days, you'll have no problems finding points. It's really pretty easy. And if you really want to feel bad about yourself, just hand this to like a little kid, and they'll find acupuncture points straight out of the gate. My kids, even when they were small, could find acupuncture points probably better than I could. For them, it's like a game. For us, like, it's a challenge, and we don't see as well as they do and all that kind of stuff. However, it's a really good point finder, and even a small kid can use it. So if a small kid can use it, you can use it too. So there's my plug for you. Okay. So when you're doing treatments, we do have the protocols. A lot of these protocols are set up. There's a book that comes with the device. Let's see here. It says Natural Health. And there are all kinds of different protocols in here. Now, if I were treating these on myself, I would probably use one of these devices. But if I were treating these on someone else, I would have a device in either hand when I go and I treat the neck. I would be treating these points all at the same time because it speeds it up a little bit, because I would be using 2 Dolphin Neurostims. So depending on which kit you have, you may have a kit that has a single device. You may have a kit that has a double device. They come in different flavors depending on what you're trying to treat. All right, so that's how you basically find an acupuncture point or a motor point or a trigger point. Don't go too fast. Oh, one more thing. All right. Even if I have the right setting on here, so I'm going to put this on the normal setting. If I push this down really, really hard, you're going to see that the light goes out. Okay. But what I'm doing here is I'm compressing the skin. So if I compress the skin too much, it becomes hyperconductive to electricity. So you can make any point along the skin be conductive if you push hard enough, but that's not an acupuncture point. And acupuncture points have very specific uses. For example, this one that we looked at earlier, that's for the anterior neck and face. Like it's great for tension headaches, jaw pain, eyes, nose, congestion, things like that. But if you don't treat that point, you'll treat the area locally with microcurrent, so you'll get the benefit of the microcurrent affecting the muscles, but you don't get the fact that this is a distal acupuncture point that affects a proximal area of the body. And for example, this point, this large intestine 11 here on the elbow, like you might treat around the area and it might affect the muscles in the area, but it's not going to affect the autonomic nervous system, and it's not going to start to bring fevers down and stuff like that. So it is important to kind of stick to the acupuncture points as much as you can. Certainly, if you take this and you stick it on a trigger point that's really, really tight and uncomfortable, it's going to make it feel better. I mean, microcurrent works very well for that. But if you want the added benefit of what this device offers, it offers you the ability to use acupuncture protocols without having to stick needles in yourself. And the guy who designed this equipment is an acupuncturist. So we have tons and tons and tons of protocols that we have in the book here for you. We do workshops on how to treat concussions. We do workshops on how to treat back and neck pain. We do workshops on how to treat auricular acupuncture points, like all the ear acupuncture points, because the entire body is represented in the ear as an upside down fetus. That's what the military uses. The military is big into ear acupuncture. They call it battlefield acupuncture. We teach classes on that. So there are a lot of different ways you can use this device if you spend a little bit of time practicing finding these acupuncture points. Don't overwhelm yourself. If you're going to try to use acupuncture points, I would recommend trying to learn like maybe one a day. If you try to learn too many at one time, it's just going to make you really confused. But the reality is that most acupuncturists around the world use about the same 50 points most of the time. So there's 365 or 367 traditional acupuncture points that are scattered all over the body. But the ones that we're mostly interested in are the ones that work most of the time and the ones that are mostly very powerful. And, yeah, there are small points that are great for, when the moon is full and you ate ice cream and your dog barked twice, this one gets rid of a headache, but we're not really interested in those points. We want the points that work most of the time. So that's generally what we have in our protocol books for you guys. All right. So next thing we're going to talk about is how to treat scars. This is actually one of my favorite parts of this tutorial. It's actually one of my favorite courses to teach. These devices are amazing for treating scars. You wouldn't believe how well these things work. So we've done some research and actually had people use diagnostic ultrasounds to measure how dense scars are. And what we found out in doing our treatments, if you do a treatment properly using the Dolphin Neurostim, you will get about a 20% reduction minimum, about a 20% reduction in the overall density of the scar. So you'll never get rid of scar tissue. Like once you have scar tissue, the only way to get rid of it is to basically cut it out. And if you cut it out, you're just going to get more scar tissue. And if you're prone to this stuff like keloids and stuff like that, you'll just make it even worse for yourself. However, if you treat scars with microcurrent and you can repolarize that tissue, it becomes more pliable and it tends to shrink down quite a bit. So it's a really cool thing to do, and it's super easy. Like I teach a whole 2-day workshop on how to treat scars. So there's all kinds of little intricacies of it, but I'm going to show you a really basic way to treat scars, and I do this all the time. I worked for about 15 years. I did 1 day a week in a women's health clinic and an OBGYN clinic. And I can't tell you how many C-section scars and hysterectomy scars I treated that were actually related to back pain. So you go cutting through these layers of fascia through here, it pulls all the way around. And These scars in here also affect things like neck pain. So you get people with severe neck pain, but if you don't release the abdominal surgery scars they've had, you're going to have a really hard time getting rid of the pain they have back here. So really, really important to treat scars. There are a number of reasons why we treat scars. One is that the scars are painful. Two is that the scars are restricting range of motion. So sometimes you'll see somebody who's had like a knee replacement surgery and they've been through all the physical therapy for the knee replacement surgery, but still their knee doesn't bend all the way they need it to. And if you use these on that scar, you can usually get those few extra degrees of range of motion that you were missing before. Scars also reduce lymphatic flow. So you got somebody who's had surgery and is now having lymphedema. Using these can be a really great tool for reducing lymphedema in your limbs. Scars also affect anytime they cut through one of the acupuncture meridians. It's considered to block the flow of energy. And if you have any surgeries in this area, all this energy coming, all this is your ascending energy. This is all your female energy. And that's generally the energy that's the most important, that gives you kind of your life force. So if you cut these off, you get a lot of weird symptoms. So even if you don't have a painful scar and you've had surgery of any kind, I don't care if it's a gallbladder surgery or, or you've having a mole taken off or whatever it is, treating those scars can be a really key point to helping out with things. And what you'll find is that sometimes scars can cause problems from a distance. So a good example of that is somebody who has had a hip replacement surgery and now they can't raise their arm. Now, obviously, your hip is not directly attached to your arm, but you've got all this connective tissue that runs up. So if I were to come up to you and pull down on your shirt really hard, it's really difficult for me to raise my arm. See that? But if I let the shirt go, things move fine. That's what scar tissue does. So if you cut through these layers of connective tissue, you can actually restrict range of motion from a distance and not even know it. So you can have a very old scar that's 30, 40, 50 years old that doesn't hurt, that doesn't itch, that doesn't seem to cause any problems. It's not ugly. It's a little thin line, and it can still interfere with range of motion in even a more recent injury. So it's always good to go back and treat these scars. And then you get into abdominal scars. If you have had one abdominal surgery, you have an 80 to 85% chance of getting abdominal adhesions. That's a lot. That's scar tissue that grows beyond the boundaries of the incision itself. And it doesn't matter if they scoped you and put a couple of holes in you, they still stuck stuff down inside your abdomen. And when that happens, your body kind of freaks out and starts laying down scar tissue. So it'll wrap around your intestines. It can cause bowel strictures. It can cause all kinds of problems. It can cause pain and, contributes to things like urinary incontinence and all kinds of abdominal pain. So those are really important things to treat. If you've had two abdominal surgeries, it's 100% chance. Like there's no way you're getting out of it without having abdominal adhesions. So if you had any abdominal surgery and really anything on this part of your body, like those are scars you definitely want to treat. All right. So how do we go about treating a scar? Well, you need 2 Dolphin Neurostims. And you are going to want to put one of the Dolphin Neurostims on the negative setting like this. And you're going to put the other one on the biphasic setting like this, okay? Now, the thing that's different about treating scars with the Dolphin Neurostims is before, we were really concerned about these little slider switches at the bottom, these ones that had the sensitivity of the ohm meter. Well, when you're treating scars, you're not trying to find a particular acupuncture point. What you're actually doing is you're actually going along this tissue that's non-conductive. So one of the features of scar tissue is it's not very conductive to electricity. In most cases, it doesn't conduct electricity at all. So we're actually trying to restore the capacitance of the tissue to conduct electricity. And if we can do that, the scar tissue
Tootsie Roll, huh?
polarized, and then what will happen is it will release.
You into what?
So if you
were to take
pads like this, like electrode pads, if you were to take electrode pads like this and put it over a scar, what's going to happen is the electricity is just going to go around the scar. It's not going to go through it because electricity always takes a path of least resistance. So if scar tissue is not conductive to electricity, then you're just going to just wind electricity kind of around the scar, but it's not going to go through it. So you have to be able to force electricity through these scars. That's the only way you can repolarize it. So to do that, you need two separate sources of electricity. So you got to have two separate sources of electricity kind of with you in the middle. And so you have to push electrons through one side of the scar, pull them to the other side.
She's not interested in going to Benavia.
Hey guys, somebody has their microphone on.
Well, that's nice that they do that.
So if you guys could hit your mute buttons if they're on.
Sometimes they have it in the paper, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it just comes on the email. Sometimes it's mostly. I do a lot of caregiver workshops, but I'm not interested now. I used to go to them.
Let's see here. All right. Looks like it's quiet. All right. So I've got a little whiteboard here, and we're going to show you how to treat a scar. So we're going to use, as an example, we're going to use an open heart surgery scar. So we've got our little guy right here. And we're going to give him a frowny face because he's had open heart surgery and he has a lot of upper back pain and neck pain from his surgery, which actually happens quite a bit if people have had open heart surgery. So we're going to put a little scar right down here in the middle. So here's your open heart surgery scar right here. So what we need to do is we need to be able to bounce electrons back and forth through this scar tissue. Okay. We can't put a pad over it because electricity is not going to go through the scar. It's just going to go around it. So we need to take two Dolphin Neurostims, and I'm going to show you with the markers first. And on one side of the scar, you're going to want the negative setting. And on the other side of the scar, you are going to want the biphasic setting. So you have these two settings. So it pushes from this side, picks it up, and kicks it back across. It pulls, then pushes it back and forth. So what it looks like in practice is that you're going to go on either side of the scar about 1/4 of an inch outside the border of the scar like that. And you're going to keep working down. Let's pull this in a little bit tighter so you can see. There we go. You're going to keep working down the scar like this in 1/4 inch segments. Like this, okay? And we're going to do this. We're going to do this 3 times. We're going to do times 3. And on each of our sweeps, so times 3 sweeps. That's terrible. Let me do this a little better for you guys. All right, so we're going to do 3 sweeps. And on each point, we're going to do 10 beeps. Okay. All right. So the goal of this is to play ping pong with electrons through this scar. That's really what we're doing. So we're just bouncing electrons all the way back and forth through this scar as much as possible. So here's what it looks like in practice. I've got one of these on the negative setting. I've got one on the biphasic setting. I'm not worrying about what happens here with these little sensitivity switches because I already know the tissue is non-conductive. I'm going to turn the Dolphin Neurostims on. Make sure I got a nice green light there. I'm going to put my thumbs on these metal plates like this. Then I'm going to put my hands down on either side of the scar. And here's where it gets tricky. Let's see if I can do this so you guys can see it. And I'm going to count out 10 beeps. Then I'm going to move down 1/4 of an inch and count out 10 beeps. So I'm going to go all the way down doing that. Once I get to the bottom, that's 1 sweep. I'm going to come all the way back up. That's 2 sweeps. And I'm going to go all the way back down again. And it doesn't matter if you start at the bottom and work to the top, or start at the top, work to the bottom. You want to do 3 good sweeps there with at least 10 beeps at each one of these locations. And that's kind of the minimum. So when I do scar treatments in our office here, I certainly take a lot longer than that. I'll spend up to an hour treating scars, but that's also a specialty thing I do. I have a scar treatment sort of program that I do with people. And we measure the scars and take pictures of it and that kind of thing. So I actually market to surgeons for treating painful post-surgical scars. Because once a surgeon is done with a patient, it's not really their fault if the person has a painful scar. People just react differently to surgeries. You may have two people that have exactly the same surgery, same surgeon, done in the same day, under the same conditions, and one has a scar that's great, the other has a scar that's not so great. Some people's systems are a lot more inflammatory than others. So doing this, you're going to notice a tremendous difference on the first treatment. So I expect that when somebody comes to me with a painful scar, I'm going to get at least a 50% reduction in their overall pain for the scar. Usually it's closer to 80%, but I'll tell, just to give myself a little bit of leeway, I'll tell them, look, this should feel about 50% better once we're done. And if you figure that each treatment is going to get you about a 20% reduction in the density, then what you're going to end up with is about 5 good treatments to release a scar fully. Now, here's the nice part about that. I can do a treatment today with the Dolphin Neurostims on a scar, and that's actually going to continue to electrically repolarize that tissue for about 48 hours or so. So it continues, what you do today actually continues to unwind the scar for about 48 hours afterwards. So the scar continues to change to some degree. So what you get today is not what you're going to have in a couple of days. But whatever you get, you're not going to lose that. So once a scar is released to a certain degree, that sticks. So I could do a treatment today, and then I could wait a couple of days and do another treatment, and then wait a couple of days and do another treatment. Or I could do one treatment this week, wait a week, come back and do another treatment, and I really won't lose any ground. Now, muscles may tighten up around an area, but the scar tissue itself is not going to change. Like once you have electrically repolarized that tissue, normal body tissue has a negative polarity. Scar tissue has a positive polarity. So we're trying to repolarize it to a negative polarity like the rest of the tissue around the body. And once you do that, the scar releases. And it's really, really nice. Like I've never seen anything that's quite as effective as this. I've used gua sha techniques. I've used all kind of manual therapy techniques. I've been a therapist for 30 years. So I've tried all these things. I've tried stretching them and using ultrasound. And, you know, I watch people do all kind of needling on scars. There's neural therapy injection where you inject procaine into the scars. That actually works pretty well. But most of you guys don't have a license to shoot procaine into people. And let's face it, like if you start poking holes down in somebody's stomach trying to get to deep scar tissue in there with a needle, you might poke a hole in something. So electricity is a lot safer, and you could get to really deep scars. So this doesn't just treat surface scars. This will treat deep abdominal adhesions or deep scar tissue in a torn shoulder or deep scarring along the scalp that from brain surgeries and stuff like that. You know, you can have tears in muscles in your legs that are really deep in there that scar up. So this will treat all those, and you don't have to dig in there with your elbow or get in there with scraping tools. Releasing scars is an electrochemical thing. So you got 2 ways you can do it. You can either use electricity, and that may include manual therapy because that does create a piezoelectric effect, or you can use chemicals, typically something like procaine. But beyond that, you know, there's just not much else out there. So using lasers do okay for surface scars. They do not do well for deep, deep scars. One of the people who did some of our scar research for us was president of the Laser Society. And he said lasers just don't get that deep. They're great for surface scars. They just don't get that deep though. So using these for scars, it's amazing. It's fun. It works almost every single time. You can have really sunken in scars that'll pop back up. You can have really big scars like keloids that'll flatten out. Now, does it completely flatten out really big keloids that look like pears on people's shoulders? No, but it does reduce them significantly and makes them much more tolerable. So that's my little spiel on scars. And I definitely recommend taking one of our scar workshops. I think we have one online. You might check that out, but it's a lot more fun to come take it in person. I just got done teaching one down in Durant, Florida last month, and it was a great class. So that's how we go about treating scars. And definitely one of my favorite things to do. There's rarely someone that you're going to find that doesn't have a scar somewhere that needs to be treated. So to reiterate, very old scars somewhere on the body, like let's say you've just hurt your shoulder. You could have a scar down on your knee over here that you got 30 years ago. It's actually pulling on the connective tissue that's going to affect your shoulder. And if you don't release this scar here, a lot of times you have problems with this injury up here. So even old scars that don't seem to be problematic, trust me, they are. They electrically affect your body. They affect the flow of chi along the meridians. They affect fascial pull. They affect lymphatic flow, and they actually affect the arousal of your autonomic nervous system. They actually act as a driver to sympathetic nervous system activity. So if you're one of those people who has an aura ring or whatever, and you check your heart rate variability regularly, if you treat scars, you actually find that your heart rate variability drops. And that's a good thing. You want your heart rate variability to drop. All right. So springboarding off of that, we're going to talk about how to do vagus nerve stimulation. So that's kind of the last part of what we're going to go over tonight. So if you have a vagus nerve stimulation kit, you will have a bag that looks kind of like this. And in that bag, there are some pads that look like this, and some other pads that look like this. You will have a white cable that has a, let's see if I can find a good one here. You'll have a white cable that has at one end, it has a metal prong. At the other end, it looks like a female connector, but if you look in there, you'll actually see there's a metal prong in this one as well. So these are actually both male connectors. So that's not going to work. These are both male connectors, so it doesn't really matter which end of these you use. If you have an older kit, you're going to have one that has an exposed male connector on either side. But these are both the same, so don't worry about it. The other thing you're going to have is a wire that has a male connector at one end and a little black cap. And if you look in that cap, you're going to see there's a shiny piece of metal in there. And so this fits over the end of your Dolphin Neurostim. You want this shiny piece of metal here to touch the tip of the unit. So you're going to push that on so you've got a good firm grip on there. And I always test it. So the way I can test this is if I turn this on, and I put my finger on the metal plate, nothing happens. But then if I complete the circuit, if I touch this, you'll see that the light goes out. So it's kind of like finding acupuncture points. When you find an acupuncture point, it completes the circuit and the light goes out and you get a high pitch. Well, if this is on properly, when you check it, this will be good. All right. So now you also need one of these little electrodes like this. I do recommend that you clean your device before you put these little electrodes on there. You can use these over and over again. These don't go on anybody's body, They just go on the device. So you can use these for months and months and months, and they're fine. But as soon as they get oil on them, so if you've been touching this with your thumb and you get skin oil, and then you put one of these on, it's not going to last very long. So any kind of alcohol, this is alcohol gel. So I'm just going to put a little alcohol gel on there, clean it off a little bit, make sure it's nice and dry. And then I'm going to apply one of these oval electrodes. Doesn't really matter what direction you face it. Now we do have to have these specially cut to fit these devices, so they are a little more expensive. So that's why I tell you to go ahead and make sure this metal plate is clean, so you don't have to keep buying those over and over again. And I'm going to take one of my ends of my little white cord here. And so now I have a white cord and a black cord coming off the Dolphin Neurostim. And to test it, if I take these two and put them together, the light goes out. So that tells me I've got a good connection there. All right. So what is vagus nerve stimulation and why would you want to do it? Well, your vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. So it starts sort of back behind the ear here and on either side and goes down, comes together right in here and goes all the way down into your gut. It's the longest nerve in the body. It's known as the wandering nerve. It's called your second brain because more information goes from your gut to your brain than goes from your brain to your gut. So many things are affected by the vagus nerve. Parkinson's disease, all kind of autoimmune disorders. They're just finding all kind of things being connected to the vagus nerve and ways to stimulate the vagus nerve, whether it be humming techniques or breathing techniques or whatever. Like that's kind of the rage these days, because if you properly stimulate the vagus nerve, you can bring down your heart rate variability, which means that your body is healthier, you recover from diseases faster, you're less prone to get sick, you're less prone to get injured. There's a whole bunch of things that come with modulating the vagus nerve. So you're going to use the Dolphin Neurostim as a neuromodulator. You're actually going to use this to swing your nervous system in a positive direction. So you've got to spend, if you want to be healthy, like if you want to be able to make it, you need to spend about 70% of your day in the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. That is the opposite of your fight or flight response. So the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. The parasympathetic nervous system is what we call rest and digest. If you don't spend 30% of your day here, you're kind of screwed. Your immune system starts to take a hit. Your recovery from injuries starts to take a hit. Your general health starts to take a hit. So if you get somebody who's sympathetically upregulated all the time, if their fight or flight response is on most of the time rather than off, it tends to really be problematic. Your adrenals get shot out. You just really, really have a difficulty. You're tired all the time. You never have any energy going into things. You're much more prone to getting injuries. You hurt more. And you tend to be a lot more prone to systemic inflammation. So what our goal is to get your body to kind of stay on this side of things. So we're going to do vagus nerve stimulation to do that. So if you're going to do vagus nerve stimulation, you have to be able to access the vagus nerve. Now, obviously it's in your head. So the best way to do that is to actually use an ear clip and get as close to the vagus nerve as we can. And there was a study that came out very recently that looked at areas of the ear that had the most connections to the vagus nerve. So the three areas are as follows, or actually the two areas are the tragus. So this little flappy thing right here on your ear is the tragus. And on the inside of there was actually the absolute number one most innervated by the vagus nerve. And then this area up here is called the concha of the ear. So this is the upper concha right here. In here was probably the second best place. Now, the other location you can use is the earlobe, but it's not as highly innervated. It is effective, but it's better to go for these other locations. So to do that, you need a particular electrode, a particular ear clip to do that. And in your vagus nerve kit, you may have one of several different ear clips. So you're going to have some black ones like this that have metal on them. And these are highly conductive. I do recommend putting, I use alcohol gel, just putting a little alcohol gel on these because that makes it even more conductive. These seem to be best for putting on the earlobe. So if you're going to use the metal ones, I would put them on the earlobe. If you try to put these on the inside of the tragus, they have a tendency to just slip right off. So they don't work very well. And if you try to hit the upper concha of the ear like this, what happens is this doesn't poke out enough to hit your target inside the ear. So you may have an older set of white ear clips that has a rubber like a conductive rubber tip on it. Now, this conductive rubber tip conducts electricity very well as long as it's wet. So as long as you're using like alcohol gel, these work great. But if you put these on dry, they're not going to work at all. So you need to put some alcohol gel on them. However, these suffer from the same problem that these do, that these black ones do. They're just not, these are have a little bit that sticks out, but they still have a hard time getting up into the upper concha of the ear right here. So if you have an older kit, you may want to call the company and order some of these. We have what are called dome clips now. You can see this is a much bigger piece of rubber here, conductive rubber, than on here. And so this is specifically designed so that it will target the upper concha of the ear. And again, it's really difficult to get anything to stay on the inside of the tragus. These work okay for that, but they tend to just slip off. So most of the time when I'm doing vagus nerve stimulation, I'm going to put this on the upper concha of the ear. And again, you want to put something conductive on here, either conductive gel, conductive paste, or some alcohol. So this is going to be how you access the vagus nerve, okay? So you're going to connect this to the black cable that runs to the tip of your unit. Now, that leaves us with this white cable with nothing on it. And you will see that there is a quick connect card. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see here. That looks like, actually, sometimes it's on the end, depending on when you got your electrodes, it can actually be on the inside of the little insert in your electrode bag. But you will see that we recommend targeting either the lower abdomen or the wrist. So there are a couple ways you can connect this. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to put one of these on your left ear, not the right ear, the left ear. You're going to take one of these little white cables. You're going to connect it to one of these pads right here. And you're going to put this in one of two places. You're either going to put it on your left wrist. Again, you want to clean your left wrist because you're going to have some oil there on your skin, and these things aren't going to stick very well. So put a little alcohol in there, clean it off real well. And there are 3 acupuncture points on your wrist. So there are calming points. They're known as the golden triangle in acupuncture, and I'm not going to go over them specifically right now, but this is about where they're located. So make a triangle like this. And if you can cover those 3 acupuncture points, they affect things like blood pressure and anxiety and your chest and things like that. So if you can cover those with this pad, again, on your left wrist, so you can either put it across like this, or you can go sort of up and down like this. Just try to cover those. Now, the other place you can put this is below your belly button. So you can find your belly button. You can go 4 fingers below your belly button and put it right down here, and that works fine too. So they do have slightly different effects, but for all intents and purposes for doing vagus nerve stimulation, you just need to try both of them and see which works best for you. Everybody's a little bit different. So if you find that putting it on your wrist makes you feel like a little too sedated, move it down to below your belly button. And if you find that, if you try it on your belly button first and it doesn't work well, put it on your left wrist. Okay. So that's going to be your setup. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So I'm going to take a little bit of alcohol here, put it on the rubber dome clip. I'm going to go to my left ear and I'm going to go in the upper concha right here. I'm going to take this other electrode and I'm going to put it across the golden triangle here. Then I'm going to turn my Dolphin Neurostim on. And now when I turn the Dolphin Neurostim on, you'll notice that the light is off. So that tells me I've got a good connection. So if you have a good connection, then this light should be off. So you have 2 choices at this point. You can either hold this button down, hold the black button down like this, and it's going to beep and blink and stuff like that. Or you can push this black button that we talked about earlier, and it's going to go into a silent mode, and it's going to run anywhere from about 11 to 13 minutes. So at this point, I can just sit back on the couch and let the vagus nerve stimulation do its thing. If I'm in clinic, a lot of times if I'm doing stretching or body work on the patient and they're on a table and they're not moving around too much, I'll go ahead and have vagus nerve stimulation on them while I'm doing those other things. And so I can let that work on their system while I'm doing these other things. Now, there are in your kit, there is also something called it's called a splitter, a Y cable that looks like this. So if you have this Y cable, if you pull that out, we're going to go over how to use that. So instead of one ear clip, you can actually connect this up and do 2 ear clips. So I'm going to put this on the black cable here, and I'm going to put 1 ear clip on one side of this splitter cable and 1 ear clip on the other one. And now I can put one of these on either ear like this. Again, into the upper concha on either side. My backup would be the earlobes. So let's just connect these to the earlobes here. I've got these connected to my earlobes. And at that point, I would actually want to put the Dolphin Neurostim on the biphasic channel, because one side of your vagus nerve runs down and the other side tends to run up. So you want to cycle between the two of those to balance things out. Generally speaking, with my clients, I start out with just using the left ear, and we work with that for a while. And then once we've done that for a little while, we will switch over and do both sides. And again, any of these treatments you do with vagus nerve stimulation on yourself or anyone else, we strongly recommend doing just a 5-minute treatment to start out. And once you've done that 5-minute treatment, see how the person feels. Everybody's a little different. Like if you have somebody who's a very robust athlete and they work out all the time and they're just in great shape, they're probably not going to notice a lot of difference. But if you have somebody who has like chronic fatigue syndrome or any of those kinds of things, sometimes 5 minutes is all you need. So you want to see how they do with that initial treatment before you send them out into the world to do this. So we recommend starting with 5 minutes and adding 5 minutes a day until you hit about 30 minutes. And if at any point it makes you feel a little too sedate, you can actually do the following thing. You can take one of these devices, one of these ear clips, and you can put it just on your right ear. So I'm put this on my right ear and put this pad below your belly button and put your Dolphin Neurostim on the positive setting. And that's going to bring things up again. I do not recommend doing that before bed unless you don't like sleep. If you do that before bed, it has a tendency to wind you up a little bit. So I would use that sparingly. But if you did it in the morning and found that you were a little sedate, I would do about 5 minutes of positive polarity just to bring things back up. Positive on the right ear. Most of the time, you're just going to do negative on the left ear. So again, about 98, 99% of what you want to do is left ear, negative, unless you're using this splitter cable. If you're going to do both ears, you put it on the biphasic setting, this plus minus symbol, and run the electrode down to your tummy. And you can do that. You can do that for, as long as you're doing the left ear. So 5 minutes a day up to about 30 minutes a day. And you need to play with it a little bit. So like how often should you use this? That's a big question that people have. Okay, well, let's see. I'm a single father. I'm 53 years old. I raise 2 children by myself. I do 10-hour days. I start at 8 o'clock in the morning, finish at 6 o'clock at night. I work straight through, so I don't really take any breaks. And I run around a lot. Like in a couple of weeks, I got to be in Miami speaking at a medical conference down there. And in December, I got to be up in Toronto to speak at a conference there and teach a workshop. So I'm on the go all the time. And I'm not 25 anymore. So my system tends to lag a little bit, whereas in my 20s or 30s, I had plenty of energy. So what I find is if I do vagus nerve stimulation about twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes, I'm in a great place. Like that levels my system out. I have plenty of energy. I'm not stressed out anymore. I recover much better from the things that I've done to myself. And when I don't use vagus nerve stimulation, I notice my sleep patterns aren't as good, and I tend to lag in the afternoons. Now, if you are, say, a performance athlete, like an Olympic level cyclist or something like that, and you're training every day, you might use vagus nerve stimulation for 30 minutes after every workout that you do, because you're pushing your body so hard, you can actually push yourself into overtraining syndrome where your heart rate variability tanks. Not your heart rate, but your heart rate variability, where it goes so high that that you really, you really can't recover from things. So if you can modulate your heart rate variability, HRV, if you want to look that up, you can definitely recover from things much faster. Now, when I had COVID, my oxygen saturation was hanging out around 91%. Wasn't great, but it wasn't awful either. So I was doing vagus nerve stimulation, and I was taking all these really horrid Chinese herbs. But anyway, I was rocking along pretty good. And then I decided I didn't need any of that, and I was feeling fine. So I didn't do vagus nerve stimulation. I didn't take my herbs. And I woke up the next morning, my oxygen saturation was 80. And I felt like I was going to die. I really felt awful. And I really thought I was going to have to call and get an ambulance to come out to the house and pick me up, which presents a whole bunch of other problems because I have 2 small kids. So what I ended up doing was putting vagus nerve stimulation on myself and running it for hours, like 2 or 3 hours. And after a couple of hours, I watched my oxygen saturation start to change, and I eventually got it back up to about 90. So it really saved me a trip from the hospital to the hospital. So vagus nerve stimulation works really well for anybody who has systemic inflammation of any kind. So if you're in a flare from some kind of autoimmune response, it tends to bring that down quite a bit because it reduces systemic inflammation. If you're trying to recover from a really intense workout, it's a really great thing to do. If you're sick, it's a really good thing to do. And if you are trying to, toxic mold syndrome is another one. It's really works really well for that. So there's a lot of places where you can use it, or you just have general anxiety. It works quite well for that too. So a lot of things you can do with vagus nerve stimulation. We could probably spend another 4 hours talking about all the things you could do with vagus nerve stimulation, but I just want to show you guys how to basically use it. All right. So what else do we need to talk about? We need to talk about contraindications, when to use this and when not to use this. So the contraindications are pretty simple. We're going to use what we call Joe's rule of pencils. Don't stick this anywhere you wouldn't stick a pencil. Don't jam it in your eye. Don't ram it up your nose. Don't stick it deep into your ear. Like, common sense type stuff. Don't stick it on top of an active cancerous tumor. That is a contraindication for TENS in general. Do not stick it directly on top of your head if you have a history of seizures or epilepsy. There are acupuncture points that stop seizures. I've used them before. They work quite well, but they're not on top of your head. If you're going to treat small children, turn this down on the lowest setting. It works fine on small children. I used it on both my kids when they were babies. I've done workshops for All Children's Hospital down in Tampa, and they were using it. So it's a safe modality for kids. You just need to turn it down a little bit. Safe to use on pets. I've treated horses, dogs, cats. I don't think I've ever treated a bird, but anyway, works just as well on them as it does on people. If you're going to treat pregnant women, do it under the doctor's orders. Definitely don't treat in the first trimester, because 50% of all pregnancies end up in a miscarriage. Most of it's so early that you never know it happens. But if somebody's going to miscarry, it tends to be in the first trimester. So I would avoid doing treatments in the first trimester. Don't treat over a gravid uterus. So if the doctor says, yes, treat this person who's pregnant, don't treat over their tummy. Stick to their back. Don't treat around somebody who's pregnant. Don't treat around their ankles. There are acupuncture points down here that are used to set off labor. When I worked in women's health, we were able to successfully set off labor a couple of times in patients who weren't going into labor who needed to. So I would be cautious with that. Don't treat any acupuncture points in somebody who's pregnant that push energy down. So points on top of the head tend to push energy down. Points on top of the shoulders tend to push energy down. The large intestine point we talked about earlier for your face, this is called the great eliminator. You don't want to eliminate a pregnancy. So those are all points to avoid. So there's a pretty good list of points there to stay away from if someone's pregnant. So if you don't know what you're doing with it, my advice would be to stay away from it. Other things, it's perfectly safe for implants, like baclofen pumps, dorsal column spine stimulators, bladder stimulators. Let's see what else. Plates, screws, artificial joints, staples, all those things are fine, not a problem. I think that's everything. That's all the contraindications I can think of at the moment. Oh, pacemakers. Pacemakers and defibrillators, get the doctor's okay first. If you wanted to do this on someone who was a relative or friend or whatever, and they had a pacemaker, in the little guidebook that comes with the Dolphin Neurostim, it's under the flap in the little case on the probably third page. There's a little diagram that gives you all of the electrical parameters here. Oops, here we go, over on this side. So you can copy this off and give it to the doctor, and they'll either tell you yes or no. So that's pretty well the contraindications. There is also an extension probe that comes with the device. So it looks like this. You can stick this on the Dolphin Neurostim. This is flexible, so you can bend it into any shape you need. You can use it to treat yourself. So you can treat the back of your neck if you wanted to, or you could tape this to a back scratcher and treat points on your back. This will not, you'll notice it doesn't do anything if I touch my shirt, but you can see the light go out if I go on an acupuncture point on my ear like that. So treating on clothing doesn't work, but if you work the tip of this through clothing, you can get to some acupuncture points. It's really a pain in the neck. It's much easier just to have bare skin. These can also be used. We have people who use them for TMJ stuff, for treating internal scars in the mouth. When I worked in women's health, we would make patients buy 2 of these to treat episiotomy scars. So there are other uses for these. We would make the patients buy them. They're about $25 a piece. You can buy them off the website, and that's a useful thing. Okay, so we are at about 8:42 right now. I need to go through all of your questions here. So let's see here. Rachel will ask, when will we get access to the recording? Yes, you will. You will get a link from us tomorrow, Rachel. Rachel also asks, so on the silent mode, you don't have to hold the big button. Right. So once you turn the unit on, you can either hold this button down, something on my screen right there, or you can push this button, and once you push this button, like you're in the clear for until it goes back into search mode, and you'll know it's over because it'll make that noise. So the light will turn on, and I guess that's something I need to talk about for a second. So you can drive yourself crazy looking at the light on this thing. There are 2 times when you want to look at the light. If you look at it any other time, it's just going to cause you trouble. So this is my best advice after decades of using this. When you turn this on, look at the light to make sure you got a good battery. Also, when you're finding acupuncture points, look at the light. When the light goes out, you've got an acupuncture point. Other than that, don't look at the light, because sometimes the light will flash. Sometimes it won't flash depending on what polarity you have it on. So you can see I have it, I'm pushing the button, I have it on here. You can hear it. Here it is on high setting and it's blinking, but I'm going to roll it back to the low setting and it's still beeping, but you can't see a light. So don't watch the light except to check the battery and find an acupuncture point. Anything other than that really will just cause you problems. Let's see. What else have we got here? What points are used for overactive bladder, urinary incontinence, and prolapse? There's actually a protocol for that. Let's see if it's in here. In the natural health book that comes with it. We actually have a specific protocol for that, which is in some of our workshops. But if you were to use this device for the menstrual cramp protocol, which is in here, those are all the same points you would use for urinary incontinence. Obviously, if you are, if the muscles are overactive, you need to bring it down. So you need to relax things. So that would be a negative polarity. You want to put this on the negative polarity. But if you have weakness in those muscles, you want to use the positive polarity on here. So it depends on what the incontinence is from. All right. If you have foot drop or weak muscles, positive settings, good for this. Yes and no. So when you are doing, let's look here. If you have foot drop, you definitely want to treat the low back. You can get foot drop from having nerve impingement in here. So these muscles can get so tight that they compress the vertebrae more, and it puts pressure on the nerve roots. You actually want to use a negative polarity over most of these points. Once you get that released, you may go back and do a positive setting then, but there are other acupuncture points along the leg that you probably want to treat. There are a series of points, and you might want to, I'll write this down for you so you can look it up. There are points along the toes that are called Jing Well points. And here's an example of a couple of them right here. You can see right here, right here by this toe, they tend to be at the bottoms of the, an angle over my fingers now, they tend to be at the bottoms of the corner of the nails. Treating those points, once you've treated the back on a positive setting, might be a good idea on somebody who's had foot drop. I've definitely fixed some cases of foot drop. It kind of depends on what it's from, but it's definitely something that's treatable in some cases. And you can get some really nice outcomes. It just depends on, don't expect a miracle in the first treatment, but I have seen a couple of cases where 1 or 2 treatments did some pretty amazing things. All right. Oh, you're welcome, Rachel, for the recording and the Facebook group. Can you show a way that makes the points of the device less irritating to the skin? They don't glide over the skin without irritation. Probably the best advice I can give you would be to just go very lightly. The problem is if you put a conductive medium on the skin of any kind, like let's say you covered the skin with electrode gel or something like that, everything's going to be conductive at that point, and you're not going to be able to find your acupuncture points. So you just need to use very, very light pressure when you're looking for your treatment points. How would you treat pain from degenerative disc disease? Okay, well, again, we'll go back to our back pain protocol. So you want to, as much as you can, treat over the nerve roots. And these particular acupuncture points, known as the shoe points, are directly over those nerve roots. And the associated acupuncture points affect the back. So if you do this protocol, and then we have one for the upper back, right there. So there's all your points for the upper back. And there is also a series of points for neck pain. And these, so I've worked in neurology and neurosurgery practices, and I've used those protocols extensively. They actually work quite well. The hint I will give you is if you're treating neck pain, you got to treat the low back too. It's very difficult to appropriately treat neck pain if the low back is too tight. So you want the hips balanced out before you treat the neck. So if you're trying to treat yourself for degenerative disc disease, I would, as much as I can, treat the low back and then move up to treating your neck. If you ignore the low back, your outcomes tend to be subpar. It really does make a difference to balance the hips out. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay. This doesn't want to cooperate with me. Why, please demonstrate how to use the wrist straps. Okay, some of you may have purchased wrist straps with your Dolphin Neurostim. If you have purchased a wrist strap, if you haven't, I think they're about 25 bucks. Don't quote me on that. It's just what I think they are. The wrist straps look like this. It's 2 wrist straps and a little stretchy cord. So if I put one of these on me and put the other one on my patient, that connects us electrically. So what that means is that I don't have to worry about touching their skin with my skin. Okay. I still need to touch the metal plate on here, but I don't need to have skin-to-skin contact with them. So if it were somebody that I was worried about, it was a high risk for infection, what I could do is I could put this on their wrist. I could put gloves on, but I do have to touch this with my skin. So I would pull the end off the glove so I can touch that. And then I can lay my hands down on the patient, and there's no risk of me transferring any pathologies of any kind to them. So you do want to make sure this is snug on your wrist and their wrist, but that's just a way of getting around having to make sure you have skin-to-skin contact. All right, what else? What cannot be worn during Neurostim? Jewelry, sports tape? No, all that's fine. Don't worry about it. Sports tape, watches, all that, that's fine. What points are used post-concussion at 3 weeks out? So we have a whole concussion protocol. The best hints I can give you are do an absolute ton of vagus nerve stimulation. And one of the best points you can treat is a point called Heart 9. And let's see if I can find it in your book here. It's probably going to be in here for, let's see if we got a point for headaches. No. Let's see here. All right, you're going to have to look at a little bit of Joe's artwork here, which is not the best, but here we go. All right, so if you have a concussion, one of the most important points you can treat is a point called H9, Heart 9. So if we look at the hand, let's see here. We got a thumb, then 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. I know it looks like a Fred Flintstone hand. God, that's a terrible thumb. But on the pinky, so this is your nail right here. On the inside, so if you go to the bottom of the nail right here and draw a line across the bottom and a line down the side of the nail, where those 2 lines intersect, it looks like the light is, there we go. Where these 2 lines intersect right here, there's your acupuncture point. That is Heart 9. So traditionally, that is an acupuncture point that is supposed to stop heart attacks. I've never stopped a heart attack with it, but it's really good for migraine headaches, which are vascular. So it's for vascular emergencies. I have used that point successfully on strokes to restore people's ability to talk. And twice now, I've had people who were blind in one eye from a stroke, and I actually gave them their vision back. And that's one of the points that I use. So it's a very, very powerful acupuncture point. But because there's swelling that happens in the brain, you want to use vagus nerve stimulation because that reduces systemic inflammation. It reduces the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines in your system. And you want to treat the heck out of this point right here. It's a very tender point. So when you treat it, you're going to go to the corner of this inside nail, and it's kind of like you run. It's kind of like if you were rolling through a parking lot and you got your wheels up on the curb and just jumped over the curb. So right here, like if I go just over the edge of the skin onto the skin there, like there's my acupuncture point. It is really tender. So you're going to angle into it and actually push pretty hard on it, and you're going to hold it there. So I would do that frequently for somebody who has had a concussion. That's definitely one of the key points in treating concussions. Like we spent $100,000 verifying a protocol for concussions, and it's way too complicated to get in right now, but I can tell you that that's a really good point to treat. All right. What else have we got here? For scars, when you treat, do more than 10, do more beeps, or 10 being the minimum? Yes, definitely do more beeps if you have time. 10 is just kind of the minimum. How many treatments do you typically do, and how do you do any multi-fiber friction to the scar afterwards? You can do any, like, you can do anything you want to a scar after you're done doing your scar treatment with this. You can do cross fiber friction, you can do scraping, you can do whatever. However, always do this first. It makes the most sense. This is the biggest change you'll ever see in scars immediately. So you can either bust your ass for like an hour scraping on these scars and hurting your patient, trying to get a little bit of release, or you can do this and get a whole lot of release quickly and then do some manual therapy or scraping afterwards and not have to spend as much time. So just work smarter, not harder. What do you use for plantar fasciitis and how often? Okay, so plantar fasciitis, let's see if it's in this book. The back pain protocol that I showed you guys earlier, really, really important, okay? Incredibly important. If you look at a dermatome chart like this, you will, so here's the thing with plantar fasciitis. Everybody knows that if you treat the bottom of the foot for plantar fasciitis, like you're just going to spin your wheels. Like it's going to feel better for a little while, but it's going to come back. You can get the injections. It doesn't really matter. What they do in physical therapy is they tell you to stretch your calf. So they have you stretching these muscles back here, have you standing on a step and stretching them down to get them nice and stretched out, because we know that those muscles pull on the Achilles tendon, they pull on the plantar fascia, and they create fasciitis there. But only in releasing those muscles are you going to get rid of it. The problem is this: you have to ask yourself, why are these muscles right here so tight? You know, what's perpetuating that muscle contraction? In most cases, it actually ends up being nerve root irritation at the sacrum. So if we look down here and we look along this dermatome chart, this tells us where the nerves run. We'll see that these are innervated by S1 and S2, the sacral nerve roots. So you've got to get up to the back and treat this area in here. So if I were doing plantar fasciitis, and I've done quite a bit of it in the past, I would use this back pain protocol right here. And then I would add an acupuncture point called bladder 57, B57. Bladder 57. So if this is a knee and this is the back of your calf and this is a heel right here, so we're looking at the back. So if you draw a line down where the gastroc muscles come together right here, like this is your acupuncture point. That's bladder 57 right there. So that point is a key point in treating plantar fasciitis. It's a good idea to stretch this while you treat that point at the same time. It tends to work out pretty well. All right. With someone who has multiple large scars on the back and abdomen, do you treat one scar several times before moving on, or do you hit everything and then start round two? Pamela, you could do it either way. It doesn't really matter. Just whatever your time allows. Feeding tubes, yes, you can treat around. No, it's not a contraindication, and anywhere somebody has a tube, good idea to treat, Rachel, especially if the person has a scar from a drain or a feeding tube. Those tend to be quite painful. Will it affect the color of tattoo, since tattoos are kinds of scars? I've never seen it affect the color of a tattoo. I've treated lots of tattoos, and it doesn't ever really seem to affect the color. Most of the inks these days actually have plastics in them for that vibrant color. You're not really going to change that very much. But yes, you're right, Rachel. Tattoos are a kind of scar. All right, let's see here. What's a mechanism of action to help someone with toxic mold issues? Okay. God, that's a whole can of worms right there. So A, you got to figure out where the mold is. B, you have to get it properly mediated. You're not going to kill it with bleach. There's nothing you can do to kill mold. If it's gotten into the sheetrock or wood or whatever, it's got to be torn out and replaced. Has to be. Then you got to get filters. Your filters have to filter down to 0.1 microns. So a normal HEPA filter is not enough. It's not going to do it. You got to get ones that go down to 0.1 microns. I have started to see a few of those I think Target has a couple of them now. The best ones are like the IQ, the Air Doctors and the IQ Airs, which $600 to $800. But you got to filter the air. The mycotoxins for mold are so small that they'll go right through a HEPA filter. And they're so small that once you get the mycotoxins in your system, your body tries to eliminate them into the intestines. And what happens is when your large intestines suck the moisture out of your poop, so you can have solid poop, the mycotoxins get sucked back into your bloodstream and just get recirculated through your system. And they're small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. So they can cause depression. They can cause people to be suicidal. They can affect your adrenals. They can affect your ability to produce endorphins. So you feel like crap all the time and hurt all the time. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And mold will kill you. So once you've done all the other stuff, or while you're doing the other stuff, you want to do a lot of vagus nerve stimulation. And I mean a lot. It's one of the few things that, so I know some specialists who deal in mold, and actually a couple of them have told me that when they did all the mold protocols, like the supplements and stuff you're supposed to take, it didn't really kick in until they started doing vagus nerve stimulation. So you've got to reduce the systemic inflammation from these mycotoxins before the other things you're doing will really kick in well. So that's, in a very small nutshell, in a short amount of time, what you need to do for mold. And get ready to spend some money if you get into mold remediation. It's pretty bad. Like, people move into tents in their yard at times, or move out west and live in a camper in the mountains to detox off of mold stuff. Oh, you're welcome, Rachel. Let's see. All right, Mark, for deep abdominal adhesions, can you do scar release therapy by putting one of the units on the abdomen and the other on the person's back? Yes, you can. The second question is, how soon after getting surgery can you start scar release therapy? Okay, so Mark, one of the things you can do is you can actually take, if you want to make this easy on yourself, you can put one unit of these on the front of the person, one on the back like this. So you can work through them like this, which is really pretty difficult to do because then you got to have the person sidelined. Or you can do this, okay, and stick this electrode on your patient's back. And then, so I got an electrode on the back, I've got a cord running to my device here. And then I can treat through the front of the patient like this, and it's going to bounce electrons back and through the middle of the patient. So you can actually get in some pretty deep stuff that way. One of my dolphins, the light never goes out. Is it defective? Well, what do you mean, Pamela, the light never goes? Like, if you make sure, if you put it on the dry setting, Pamela, so put this on the dry setting, touch the metal plate, touch the tip of the unit, like, it should go out. If it doesn't go out, I would contact customer service and have them run through a diagnostic with you, just to check it out. If we have a client who, how soon after surgery? Immediately, actually. So you can do this immediately after surgery, and it's fine. It actually increases protein synthesis and cellular membrane transport, increases ATP production by 400 or 500%. So the PTs who use this in hospitals for knee replacements and stuff, as soon as they can get to that tissue, they start doing it because it speeds up the healing. For injured or adheased areas from injuries like sprained ankles or knees with no visible scar but firm, thickened tissue, do you move the dolphin to treat? Oh, how do you move it? Just move it along the area. Just pretend like you see a scar there and just work around it. You'll do fine. Is it helpful for rheumatoid arthritis? It absolutely is, because you can do systemic inflammatory stuff. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, you probably need digestive changes. You probably need a lot of gut work with an integrative specialist, because you are just inflamed and you're setting off this autoimmune thing that you're prone to, but you're doing something to set it off. So yes, it helps with rheumatoid arthritis. You can treat over the areas where you have the big bumps and it makes them feel better. You can do vagus nerve stimulation to bring down the overall level of activity of the rheumatoid arthritis, but you still need to get your diet cleaned up. All the sugar's got to go. Probably all the wheat products are going to have to go. It's not my area of specialty, but I know people who do that, and that's what they generally recommend. Can you use water or another substance if you don't have alcohol gel? Yeah, you could just use salt water, or you could use conductive EEG paste or whatever. Anything, a little bit of water is fine. I would use salt water. That's going to be more conductive. Can you use this on an open wound in the same as you would a scar? Okay, so that's one thing I did not tell you guys. Okay, so in Joe's rule of pencils, remember I said don't stick this anywhere you wouldn't stick a pencil. Don't stick it in open wounds. But if you use it around the wound, like you're treating a scar, it definitely ramps up the healing response. I have seen these devices get tissue granulation for non-healing diabetic ulcers when wound care at the hospital wasn't working. So it can be quite effective for that. What else we got here? If we have a client who has breast augmentation, scars around the whole nipple area, how do we treat those scars? You treat them just like a scar. It's just a matter of like what your license allows you to do. So if it's a friend, it's fine. If your therapist, make sure that it's within your scope of practice to treat around nipples. But yeah, it works fine. I've treated tons of people who have had mastectomies and have had breast augmentation under doctor's orders. Can you release tightness in the hamstrings caused by spinal cord injury? Yes, you can. You can treat directly over the hamstrings that are tight, but you want to treat the spine too, because that's going to affect everything down below there. Best way to treat carpal tunnel syndrome. Is there a way to treat myself? Well, you want to treat your neck, because we know that most people with carpal tunnel syndrome have neck issues. You want to treat your wrist, you want to treat your neck, and you actually want to do the low back as well. So the easiest thing to get to is your wrist. Treating this is going to get you symptomatic relief, but getting into your neck. So I would use the neck protocol that's in the book. I would follow that. Very important in carpal tunnel syndrome. And I would say that when I treat people with carpal tunnel syndrome, I get about anywhere from 25 to 50% reduction in their carpal tunnel symptoms just by treating their low back. So the angle of your hips and stuff affects your neck, which affects how much pressure is on the nerve roots, which increases levels of acetylcholine down the pathways. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that makes muscles contract. So it pulls on these tendons. The tendons become thickened and inflamed and enthesopathic, if you will. And then there's not much space through the carpal tunnel here, so it puts pressure on the median nerve. However, if you just treat this, you've missed a large part of the problem. So treat your neck and treat your low back too. Where do I practice in Georgia? I'm down on the coast of Georgia, sort of between Jacksonville, Florida, and Savannah, around St. Simon's Island, Brunswick, that area. Is there a protocol for dementia patients? Yes. I would contact the main office to ask for that protocol. They can give you some good hints on it. For pain protocols, do you only do once, or are those done 3 times as well? The pain protocols, I just generally do those once, but I may spend, so when you're treating points in any of these protocols, good question. So any of these protocols in here, whatever it is, each point count out about 30 beeps. Okay, not 30 seconds, but 30 beeps. And that should get you where you need to be. Yes, it will help someone with fibromyalgia. We have dealt with lots of people with fibromyalgia. And again, the vagus nerve stimulation is really important, but you also need to focus on the parasympathetic calming points on the wrist. Any emotional stuff that's going on is going to drive the fibromyalgia up more. Definitely treat the low back. But most of these things treated on the low setting because people with fibromyalgia tend to be hypersensitive to things. So start out very slowly. Like if you got somebody with fibromyalgia, like 5 minutes of vagus nerve stimulation, just very light treatment on the points, and then gradually increase it, because any change you make to their system is kind of like hitting them with a hammer. So you don't want to flare things up while you're getting them better. So yes, it works, but go gently. All right, y'all. We are actually over the time limit now, and my children have to go to bed in about 20 minutes here, so I have to run home. So thank you guys very much for coming out. Oh, wait, 2 questions. Wait a minute. All right. Yep. All right. So look for an email from us tomorrow. And thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. You can certainly sign up and take this again in the future if you'd like to. I may spin it a little bit differently each time. Anyway, you guys have a great evening. Nice meeting y'all, even though we didn't get to talk. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.